Does this song make you think of anything? What about this one? Or this one? Songs all have something in common. Location. It shaped each of these songs, although in different ways, and each shows a different aspect of their hometown. So let's take a trip around the world, because this is Time and Place.
Yeah. Those are the Beatles, those are. And this is Beatleland, formerly known as Britain, where an epidemic called Beatlemania has seized the teenage population, especially female. Some of the girls can write.
That's Alexander Kendrick. He's talking about this band called the Beatles. You likely already know who they are, so let's talk about a song of theirs. I Want to Hold Your Hand. Lyrically, it has nothing to do with Britain. It's everything outside of the song that we're going to talk about. In the early 1960s, Beatlemania had taken over the UK. They were everywhere. Their fan club had 40,000 members in England alone. Police had to hold back crazed Beatle fans. And Americans like Ed Sullivan and Alexander Kendrick started to take notice. Let's talk about Alexander. That news broadcast is important to this story. A small part of it had originally aired on a November morning and was planned to be broadcast in full at night. It was shelved due to the JFK assassination later that day. It was rebroadcast on December 10th, and there was a certain person watching, Marcia Abrams, a 9th grader from America who saw the broadcast and wanted to hear more. She wrote a letter to WWDC, a local radio station, and no one there had heard of the Beatles. But one determined man, Carol James, had tracked down an imported copy of the song and told Marcia,
"If you can get down here by 5 o'clock, we'll let you introduce it."
And so she did. And with that, the British invasion began. The British invasion of the 1960s, nonetheless. But across the pond in California, another sound was soon to begin.
Marcy in a coat of flowers stops inside a candy store.
Laurel Canyon is a neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. It's known for being a cultural haven for artists in the 1960s and 70s, full of eccentrics, as Eric Clapton once said. Although many songs could represent the place, I decided not to focus on one song, because this proposes an interesting question. Instead of music defining the location, can the location define the music? What I mean is, if you put the Byrds and Joni Mitchell and everybody else in Paris or Seattle, would the music still be the same? You can make the case for yes. That similar cases like the Parisian Surrealists or the Washington grunge scenes were not created due to the location, but because of the community there, and that this rule would apply to the Laurel Canyon scene as well. But there's also the case for no, and that's also interesting to explore. For one, Lou Adler in the movie Echo in the Canyon said that there was a certain feeling that came with being close to the Sunset Strip and also somewhat in the country. Maybe that feeling bled into songs like Our House and 1230. There's also an academic case. A 2010 article stated that drums in hot and humid climates, such as in Bali, have thick skins and some method of tuning due to the weather. Maybe something like that happened in California. There's also lyrical tributes, but that's a situation for another day. For example, right now. Wait, what? I thought they were doing New York, New York instead. Nope. Really? Okay. Weird. So, Welcome to New York by Taylor Swift, opening track to the seminal pop album 1989. Look. It feels strange to do this song. For one, there are more notable songs about New York. As a synth-laden Taylor song, there are better ones to talk about. The lyrics about LGBT rights are overshadowed by more notable ones in her discography. This one is just the opening to 1989. But this song can still let us explore one interesting idea about location and music. The anthem. This is the actual anthem of New York. This one is from the late 70s I Heart New York campaign you likely already know. These two songs are quite similar in theme. They both state how special and different New York is. The famous song New York, New York also has these themes. These songs are also mainly singular. I, not we, which is interesting compared to a national anthem like the US with 9 first-person plural words, or Romania having 6 with half the amount of verses. Both of these are criticized in the paper National Identity and Symbols for having violent imagery. Compare this to I Love New York, an entire campaign made to dissuade a violent image. The famous logo was also redone in the wake of the September 11 attacks. Welcome to New York was used to start the album also specifically to set a tone. One lyrically of hope, one musically of the 80s style synth-pop constantly used on the album. New York being, as Taylor said, an electric city also ties into the musical change from the country songs she made in her first 3 and arguably 4 albums. Like the song goes, everybody here was someone else before.
And then there's being inspired by a place. And,
Music is an important piece of any culture, and it can define a place in a multitude of ways, like these songs show. Do these songs make you think of anything? I hope they do now. I'm Nick, and this was Time and Place.
maybe I would play the song that I wrote, the first song that I wrote that was inspired by New York City.